Okay, good morning, and thank you all for being here today. I'm Bill Powers. I'm the president of the University of Texas at Austin. With me here today are two people that you know very well, our men's athletic director, DeLois Dodds, and our women's athletic director, Chris Plonsky. I have a short statement, and then we'll be open for questions. I'm pleased to announce today that the University of Texas at Austin is reaffirming its commitment to the Big 12 Conference. This is a long-term and unequivocal commitment. After spending several months examining and evaluating our options in the changing world of Division I athletics, we've decided the Big 12 provides the best long-term opportunity for our university. In reaching this decision, we've taken into account the impact on our student athletes, financial ramifications of the various options, and the interests of our Big 12 partners. We've been served well by the Big 12 since its inception, and it's always been our top priority to keep the Big 12 together. We believe a newly constituted 10-member conference will continue to benefit all of the members of all of our member institutions and the University of Texas at Austin. We are committed to a new long-term 10-team structure. Thank you. And now we'll take questions.
Ms. Bill, what makes you feel like you can realize these numbers of 20 million and a possible 3 to 5 million from your TV network in the absence of Nebraska and Colorado?
We've evaluated the value long-term of a 10-team conference, and we feel that it is very positive. Exactly what numbers will be reached will depend on market negotiations, but we feel very confident that this is a very viable and strong economic conference.
What are the factors that make you feel confident?
We have a great tradition in this league. We've had national champions in many sports in this league. Certainly in football and basketball, Olympic sports. We have had very good television ratings. These are all factors that lead us to believe we have a very strong future in the new 10-team Big 12. We're not guaranteed. These will be part of negotiations. We've had indications that we will go forward with very strong economics. We do not have any guarantees from the league or our northern partners. There have been reports that there's going to be a special deal for some of us using penalty money or other money to guarantee Texas and possibly other schools of particular value. We were not part of that. We had heard about that. We're not part of it. That was not part of our consideration, and we oppose that kind of deal. We will be distributing money in the Big 12 according to the normal Big 12 distribution.
So that being said, then how does this make more sense than maybe the opportunity you guys could have at the table?
Well, we spent a great deal of time with the Pac-10. Anytime there's in any business or enterprise relationship, you compare the terms and value in each of the options and possibilities. I am not in a position to comment on the Pac-10's offer or discussions. There's a lot of proprietary information in those, and we're going to honor the confidentiality of the Pac-10. Let me say the Pac-10 representatives and their institutions, it is a great league. They were extremely professional in all of our discussions. but it is a comparison of our options under our arrangement with the Big 12 and what might have happened with the Pac-10. And it is our view that it is our strong, both economic and traditional, and looking out for our student athletes, in our strong interest to remain in a 10-team Pac-12.
Bill, can you confirm when the television package was presented to you, and are the partners ABC, ESPN, and Fox?
I was not part of those. We don't have a firm deal with the Big 12 or these partners. Those were dealt with at the Big 12. We did get reports during the day of what our estimates of our economic value as a conference are. It is not my understanding that we have any new contracts with our partners, but I'll leave that to the Big 12 to discuss.
Helpful to that point, this was about an alignment discussion. Conferences are comprised of members whose collective value then determines the weight of the conference. So the assessment here is about the perceived collective value of what our conference is now as a 10-member league. And 10's not a bad number. 10 was a very common number before conference shifting began. What was being talked about was a potential new and non-conventional alignment, larger than any, potentially larger than any, that could also have a perceived economic value. So the words of guarantee weren't necessarily applicable from the outset. It was a discussion upon alignment, construction, and what that possible value could be, and at the same time assessing a strong league, certainly different with 2 members departing, and what the economic value of those remaining members could be.
So bottom line, what was the tipping scale that said this is going to work versus moving to the Pac-10 or Uber conference?
There was no single issue that was a tipping point. This is a long-term affiliation. And in the end, all things considered, including the economics, the student athletes, our traditional rivalries, a very successful history with the Big 12, a very positive view of the traditions and the academic and athletic programs in the Big 10. But all things considered, this is not just one item or another. It's what is the most comfortable and best fit for the University of Texas. And our view, after going through all of that thinking and giving it very careful consideration, is the new formation of the Big 12.
You said that you guys committed all of this in 2007, if you guys were committed, making the same commitment to the Big 12 back then as opposed to now. Because Dr. Coleman said, I mean, the media has basically said that as well, that in 2007 you guys had a chance to commit to that network and if this office would quit it.
Well, we were committed to the Big 12 in 2007. We've been committed to the Big 12 throughout. We did become concerned when there was a lot of talk about other schools leaving to the Big 10. Instability is not good for any conference. And Texas led the way at the Big 12 meeting to say we need to keep the Big 12 together and we need to end this instability. 2 of the teams reacted to that by leaving the conference. We like Nebraska in the conference. We like Colorado in the conference. That's their choice, and they made the choice that they thought was in the best interest of their institutions, and we respect that choice. But now we have stability. We're in a far better position than we were 3 months ago when there was a great deal of instability. And we worked hard to get that. In 2007, there was talk about a Big 12 network. We have been talking about a Longhorn network. There were some teams and schools that would have liked us to forego our Longhorn network for a Big 12 network. Nebraska was not one of those schools and did not ask us at that time to do that. We were cautious about a Big 12 network after talking to a lot of consultants and analyzing it, and our preference was for our own network. That was in no way a lack of commitment to the Big 12 as a conference. It was an internal question of how we were going to handle our contract rights. And I will say, Nebraska was aligned with us on that issue at the time.
Pac-10, though, your desire for a Longhorn network?
I wouldn't call it a sticking point, Kirk. We need to evaluate what we would be giving up and what we would be gaining. Certainly, one thing we would be giving up is the fact that we currently retain our television rights, as does every other school in the Big 12. That allows those schools to, I think, better exploit what we call the Tier 3 local rights, especially in some of the Olympic sports. That is of value, I believe, to all or at least most of the Big 12 schools. That's not true in most conferences. So that was certainly a cost to us. We knew that going into any discussions was that they were a conference that owned the television rights. The Pac-10 was. So that we understood that was an issue for them. Then the question is, our evaluation of the value we would have in return, not by a different deal with the Pac-10, but just evaluating the value going forward with the Pac-10. So certainly the television network was an issue, but it wasn't as though that was a negotiation sticking point. It was a cost for us to enter the Pac-10.
Where do you stand with a Longhorn network? Is this something that's getting closer to fruition? Are you ready to launch something anytime soon?
We worked on that for probably 2 years now and are in a good place. We have some options with it. We stopped moving forward on it when we got into the conversations about conferences, and now we're in a position where we can continue to look at that and move forward.
When does this new television package start? Does it start in 11? And how long does it go, this long-term commitment?
Well, that's a conference conversation between the networks and Dan Beebe. I followed that through yesterday, and bottom line, the Big 12's TV packages are going to be every bit as good as any other package at any other conference in the nation. And the Fox agreement, cable agreement, runs 2 more years, and then with the option to extend 4 more. The ABC ESPN contract goes through 2016. ABC ESPN were very, very helpful yesterday. That's a question you can talk to Dan Beebe about, Commissioner Beebe about. But ABC ESPN been very helpful in all of this, and we feel very good about the TV part of it.
When you lose 2 schools that other conference won, I mean,
That's a question that you would ask the networks. They're the ones that are providing the revenues for this, but say it again. I'm not in the discussions with the networks and the commissioner. The commissioners kept us informed on it. But I know this. I know that we are in good shape on the television side. And but before, while I'm at the mic here, I want to say through this process, which has been a good experience for all of us, I want to thank our coaches, and a lot of them are here, have been really, really helpful to Chris, President Powers, and me. Our staff has been terrific, worked hard, did a great job getting us information. This has been a good team effort. I feel good about the process. I feel good about how we looked at all of our options. I feel good about the outcome. I feel really, really good about where we ended up with this and our future.
Point, is there some healing that needs to go on among the members?
We live in athletics. We beat each other up on Saturdays, and then we hug each other on Sundays. And this is competition, and we're good at that, and we're good at being friends when the competition's over. And the Big 12 ADs are going to be great. They've always been great. We have our differences, but those differences aren't carried outside of the meeting room. So I feel good about the relationships between the institutions and the people in the institutions.
And can I add to that? We've been in consultation with the presidents all throughout this, and I believe it's been a process with some uncertainty as to what the future would be. I would reflect that's true of our coaches. They've been terrific throughout this process. Anytime there's uncertainty, it's a stressful process. But I've been in contact on a daily, often multiple daily basis with our presidents, and I think actually we come out of this with a stronger bond and relationship than we went in.
How about this a long-term commitment?
Get out of this deal, and what are you going to do with that money?
I didn't feel the first part of it.
How much money will the university, or do you anticipate the university to get out of this deal? For how long? And what do you plan on doing with the extra money?
We don't have a new deal. We don't have a deal with the northern team. We feel very confident that this is a very positive move with our media rights and that they will be improved. As far as what we do with it, it will be the same as what we do with our distributions generally. We've been blessed that our athletics programs not just sustain themselves, but have balances, and we've used those to support the athletic programs, and we've used those to support academics on the campus.
We don't have a new deal, so what is this? Is this a new agreement? Is it a new alignment, a new calculation?
The one part I do know is that from Dan Beebe yesterday is that the ABC ESPN contract continues as was. In other words, there are no reductions in it, and that's a very positive thing. We lose 15 or 20%, 15 or 17%, whatever the percentage is of our members, but the contract stays the same. And then we prior to the conversations, or prior to losing Nebraska and Colorado, we were having conversations with Fox about from 2012, Chris, to 2016, and those conversations will be ongoing and hopefully very positive. But we've got good vibes and good commitments from our network partners, and we're going to be, in the end, a conference that realizes or generates enough money on the TV side to be like Pac-10 or like Big Ten, Southeast Conference, ACC.
And even with the departures of the institutions, I think what DeLoss is trying to emphasize here is do not underestimate the existing platform from which this alignment, now reaffirmed with 10, will be working. The Big 12 is an excellent conference in the eyes of some important partners, media partners. Ratings of games this year were tremendous. The competition value a central time zone is a media-friendly, fan-friendly time zone, an exposure-friendly time zone. This league, despite the choices of two of our members to move in a different direction, is not bereft of strength and brand strength and media strength. That has been affirmed by the people that do business with us and have been doing business with us since this league was committed to in 1994.
So the discussion was, fewer teams, that means the percentage of payout will be greater for each institution of the remaining 10. And then the commitment that the Longhorn Network, the institutions can go ahead and pursue their own networking TV deals also. So that's what it came down to?
Unique to our markets, we have a collection of schools that have done very well in their own markets, establishing value beyond the conference agreements. I think if you look around, even in our own state, and certainly I think with the University of Oklahoma, they've been able to establish sponsorship, media, and partnerships that bring added value beyond the conference rights agreements. That was significant in the room in 2007 in the discussion on whether a Big 12 network was in play back then, and it's been in discussion since.
Let me say, I think the other part of your question was, is that the primary reason that we're part of the Big 12 today? And that's only part of the reason. I mean, the television thing is an important part, but we're in the Big 12 for a lot of other reasons, and that would just be one of the reasons.
To keep other teams from bolting and going to another conference, have y'all discussed tougher penalties?
At the Big 12 meeting, we discussed ways of making the conference stable. And we agreed on the way to make the conference stable was public, unequivocal, long-term statements of long-term commitment to the Big 12. We have been working with these institutions for a long time. There are some particular issues that we may not have unanimous votes in the Big 12, but there is a tremendous amount of trust among the presidents of these institutions, and we all agreed that public, unequivocal statements of long-term commitment to the Big 12 was all of the protection we needed.
League like the Big Ten or the SEC came along to another school in the league with even more attractive offer than they have now that they've been
because their presidents are people that I have a great deal of faith and trust and admiration for, and they have said publicly and unequivocally they're committed long-term to the Big 12, and that is enough for me.
Desire on your part, the new round of television contracts to include any kind of stipulations so they have to sign and pledge their loyalty on paper?
All we've asked for is public, unequivocal statements from their presidents, and we have those, and that's all that we need to trust these very trustworthy partners that we admire in the Big 12.
On a slightly different tack, what role did comments from state and federal elected officials play in your discussions and decisions? And what signals, if any, direct or indirect, did you get from Governor Perry?
I think the governor made a statement that he was going to stay out of that, and he did. I have not heard from the governor. Well, he has not contacted me. I think the governor has done a good job of making statements that he was going to stay out of this. I applaud that. I think he's acted with leadership in this area. He has not contacted me. There's been a lot of commentary by the both in the newspapers, and I have received calls. There's a hearing tomorrow, as you know, in the legislature. That did not play a role in our evaluation that this is committing to the Big 12 is in our best interest, and that has been part of the discussions that started several weeks ago have continued as they had been without that they were not altered by the public commentary.
Big 12 field are trying to get a conference championship game, and there's been talk about divisions or.
We've not had a meeting, Kurt, to discuss championship game or divisions. Our take on it would be that we have a 10-team league, that we do a complete. We play all 9 teams in football, double round robin in basketball, not do a championship game in football. That's our feeling about it today, but we've not talked as a conference to know where that could go differently.
Will the Fox deal and the ABC ESPN deal now be synced up? In other words, you had staggered negotiating.
No, they're not synced up. Fox is up after 12, ABC ESPN after 16. We're working with Fox right now on a deal between 12 and 16 to sync them up in 2016.
Have y'all come up with the new conference name, like the Big Bunch, Big Boppers, Balls, Tiles? 12 doesn't work anymore, right?
Yeah, we have not. Some have talked about the conference formerly known as the Big 12 or whatever. We have not addressed that.
We're looking for leadership from the Big Ten on that.
Do you think Texas fans are happy with this? I mean, there was so much momentum and discussion about you going to the Pac-10, and it just chatter out there seemed to be that they were starting to accept this, and this kind of.
I think there was a lot of excitement about the process, and you all helped feed that. I appreciate that. The appetite was heavy, and I've told Mac Brown that I could pick the phone up and call somebody in Houston, and 5 minutes later call somebody in Dallas, and they're going to have the information already. And that's kind of how this has gone. I've even told Coach that if you think it, people are going to know it. And Chip, you might want to work on that a little bit. I think our fans, I talked to a lot of people last night. I called maybe 20 people, and to the person, they were very pleased with the decision that we made. And I think they liked the process. I think they liked the option. I think they saw good in anything that we came up with. But I think they feel good about where we ended up.
What do you say to people that may be concerned about strength of schedule, specifically in football?
I think that when you play Oklahoma, A&M, Kansas State's been strong. I think our conference is strong, and I think in the end, even without a championship game, we've got a shot at 2 BCS teams every year, and that's the goal, is to win a national championship and play in a BCS game.
Expect for this to take effect in 2011 for every school across the board, or 2012?
I think that's still a question. We're planning on 2012.
How much did travel have an impact? Did travel, not having to go out to the West Coast, play at the Central Time Zone?
Travel and the academic life of our student athletes was a major consideration. There were ways to manage that, but the more one reduces travel, the more it starts to look like 2 separate conferences, and there's not a lot of interdivisional play. I will say I want to again say the Pac-10 was very professional in all this. Larry Scott is a tremendous commissioner. The institutions worked very hard on that issue. That was of great importance to all of the institutions, both on our side and the Pac-10 side. I'd say there was no one tipping point. It was an overall evaluation of where the affiliation would be, but travel and the goal of advancing the student athletes was at the top of the list.
Yankees' flirtation with the SEC threatened to blow this whole thing up yesterday.
I'm sorry?
I said, did A&M's flirtation with the SEC, did that threaten to blow this thing up, or did you have to drag them to the table?
we spent a great deal of time talking with Texas A&M. They rightly looked at this from their institution's point of view. We committed to the Big 12 before we knew what Texas A&M was going to do. We are delighted that Texas A&M and the University of Texas will be in the same conference.
Do you feel strongly that Nebraska and Colorado will owe that penalty and that you have no trouble collecting it?
Well, we'll leave that to the lawyers in the conference. I think the conference rules are clear on that.
We talked about the decision-making process and all this. You mentioned that hearing. They wanted to hear what the decision-making process was. Talk about the timing and the decision-making process in what appeared to be a very fluid situation.
Well, any time that you're dealing with several counterparties in business terms, another conference, we're dealing with our Big 12 members, media partners. It is fluid. The decision-making process, I think, was very open among our members. It is very hard to conduct those kinds of negotiations in public. But we were very transparent with our board, very transparent with all of the other members of the Big 12.
What about those lawmakers who say they would like to wait until after Wednesday when they got a chance to talk to you about this? Obviously, they didn't get that. I think they still plan on holding that hearing, but there had been a desire to have those hearings first.
I think it is very difficult to conduct negotiations like this in public. I think in the future, when we're dealing with counterparties of any sort, counterparties want to know that they can rely on the outcome of negotiations, and that is very difficult to do in a political process.
What advantages the debt we're going to bring to the University of Texas, and just your thoughts about what it would consist of?
I'll let DeLoss and Chris comment on the structure. It would, I think it would be positive economically for the campus. It will also be very positive in outreach and portraying the University of Texas throughout the state and throughout the country. It'll connect with alumni who are increasingly all over the country and around the world. It'll give us an opportunity, and I just use this for example. There are no plans along this line, but Tuesday evening at the Butler School, where people can see the opera performance. It will be primarily athletics, but conferences typically have, conference or in our case, a campus network would typically have non-athletics programming. We would be very creative and in using this as an outreach for our athletics programs and an outreach for our academic and cultural programs.
Thank you all.